from the State Historic Preservation Office that I'm going to read, and then I'll introduce everybody, and then I might just sort of take another half a minute to sort of talk about what we want to do with the ground rules for this about muting and unmuting microphones. We're going to maybe try to open up things a little bit more than in some of the other sessions, since we're looking for a little bit of interaction with this, and this is more of a lighthearted session. Not that the other ones were heavy, but less serious, I think I'll say, with all due respect. All right, so again, I'm Todd Mahan. I'll be serving as the moderator for this session. As we begin, we want to recognize that Minnesota history spans at least 13,000 years. The vast majority of that time is represented by American Indian history alone, and from that perspective, our urban and rural built environments are very recent. The state of Minnesota, as it's been known since 1858, is within the ancestral homelands of the Dakota and Ojibwe peoples. The 11 tribal nations in Minnesota are our current partners in advocating for recognition and protection of the state's cultural resources, along with the other Native nations with historical connections here. The State Historic Preservation Office is currently in the final stages of completing our statewide historic preservation plan for the next decade. Among other goals, we seek to broaden the scope and equity of historic preservation through identification and historic designation of more properties important to tribes and underrepresented communities, including traditional cultural properties, cultural landscapes, archaeological sites, and buildings and structures. We encourage you to be part of this effort, to work with us and others to build partnerships and advance historic preservation efforts from across the state. So if you experience any technical issues, please use the private chat function to send a message. We'll do our best to see if we can get those figured out. This session is being recorded. I hit the record button a minute and 50 seconds ago. So that's going to be available for on-demand viewing. As a registrant, you will automatically receive access to this recording after the session has expired. We're going to leave some time at the end if it's needed for some Q&A, and we'll get to those questions as time allows. To ask a question, please use the Q&A function. And as I said, I'm going to try to, I think maybe after the introductions, I'm going to unmute everybody. My understanding is that, including the attendees, my understanding is you can mute yourself after that. In case you don't want to hear it. I might mute people in case there's some background noise, but it's a trivia session, so we want to have a little back and forth and some questions as they come from the audience. So we're looking for a little participation in here. You can certainly use the Q&A and chat functions if you want to as well. So now I'd like to introduce our presenters. Melinda Hutchinson, Grant Specialist at the Minnesota Historical Society, Laura Kindseth, Design Reviewer at the Minnesota Historical Society, and Megan Narvey, Outreach Conservator at the Minnesota Historical Society. If you'd like to learn more about their professional backgrounds, you can find their detailed bios and contact information on the MnSHPO conference homepage. With that, I'll turn it over to them.
Is it me now?
I think you're starting, Laura.
Okay. Okay.
This is going to be lighthearted and
yes. Welcome again to our trivia session today about Minnesota historic properties around the state, local architects, including some maybe lesser known ones. Along with some questions about historic materials and methods and museum collections care.
okay, and I just wanted to let everyone know that the three of us presenting, well, actually even Todd, our host, we are all from the Local History Services and Grants Office, and together we are known as the Heritage Preservation Department at the Minnesota Historical Society. We just wanted to take a minute to talk about what we do. We do outreach around the state. We administer the Minnesota Historical and Cultural Heritage Grants from the Legacy Amendment, as well as the Capital Grants and Aid. And we try to do a lot of networking amongst our colleagues around the state. So that's some of what we do. I'm not going to dwell too much on that so we can get started on our program. So yeah, we'll let Megan move us ahead on the questions, and I guess we'll talk about the rules next. I can't think of my words today, so this ought to be fun. But the rules are posted on the screen. You keep track of your own score. We're going to have 8 questions per round, so 2 rounds, total possible score of 16 if you get all 16 questions right. We will give you 15 seconds to answer each question. At the end of the round, we will ask for your scores. And I think we all decided to use the chat function for that. Hopefully that'll work. We're not terribly used to WebEx, so we're a little bit new on this, but we think the chat function will work. So go ahead and put your total score in the chat function. And yeah, at the end, we'll total it all up and we will put in some reminders as we go for scoring. But it's kind of be, you know, personally taking care of your own score, and this is gonna be great. So here's our schedule. Round 1, then we're gonna score. We'll have an intermission bonus prize. So you see there, we have Caring for Your Family Treasures, a lovely book that Megan has in her office ready for the lucky winner. The grand prize is going to be Roger Kennedy's Historic Homes of Minnesota. And that'll be determined after round 2, where we figure out who is the big winner. Laura, I think I just took your part.
It's okay. I think you have it covered.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt just before we started and have a little, again, private meeting in front of all of the attendees. Should I unmute now, or do you want me to wait till after the first round of questions are done? Or
Unmute participants, you mean?
Yeah, unmute the attendees, excuse me.
I think maybe at the end for the Q&A, or did we want to do it in between?
No, we can wait till the Q&A. I wasn't sure how we want to handle it. My apologies.
That works.
We'll wait for that. Thanks.
So hold your questions, everyone.
Is everyone ready? Right, good luck. So here's question 1. The Ely State Theater, built in 1936, was designed by Liebenberg and Kaplan, well known for their theater design in Minnesota. The theater is an example of which of these styles? Art Deco, Art Nouveau, Bauhaus, or Streamline Moderne? You have 15 seconds.
And time.
Question 2. In 1908, this unusual hand-blown enamel-painted window was installed in the Turnblad Mansion, now the American-Swedish Institute, in Minneapolis. It depicts a battle that took place on the Swedish land of Gotland in 1361. What is the name of the window and the battle? Is it Hellqvist, Visby, Magnus, or Mrs. Frisbee? 15 seconds.
And time.
Question 3. The 1928 Highland Tower is certainly a prominent feature of the St. Paul built environment. Who was the architect of the tower? Was it Leroy Buffington, Clarence Johnston, Harry Wild Jones, or Clarence Wigington? 15 seconds.
Time.
Question 4. This is an image of some stone deterioration. So what type of deterioration is illustrated in this picture of a marble sculpture? Delamination, blistering, efflorescence, or sugaring?
Time.
Question 5. This Carnegie Library, built in 1904, is an eclectic mix of Gothic and Flemish styles. Can you identify the material making up the main body of the structure? Is it granite, Cassoda stone, pipestone, or Sioux quartzite?
And time.
Moving on to question 6. The Nicholas Marnock House, a fieldstone house built between 1857 and 1860 in southeastern Minnesota, is built in the Quirin House style of rural Luxembourg. Design features of the Quirin House style include which of the following? Mortise and tenon framing, thick stone walls, half-hip roof, or all of the above?
Time.
Question 7. The brewing industry flourished in Minnesota with over 100 breweries located around the state before the turn of the century. Which of these breweries, all established before Minnesota became a state, was the first? The Deinhardt Brewing Company, Vickers, Waldman Brewery, or Jorg Brewing Company?
Time.
Okay, last question of this round. Question 8. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. One of the most critical roles of an HVAC system in Minnesota is to manage the humidity. Minnesota has a humid continental climate with an average relative humidity of around 70%. What is the lowest relative humidity at which mold growth is likely to occur? Is it 55%, 65, 75, or 85%?
Time.
Okay, now everyone can tally up your scores and put them in the chat. And Megan will give you a bonus question.
I think you got to read off the correct answers before they can tally them.
We probably should give them the answers first.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they're that easy.
Or everybody's gonna be like, I have 8. Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I think I got them all. Yes, really wide awake today. Okay. The answers to question 1. The theater is an example of which style? The streamlined modern design appeared during the 1930s in response to the emergence of the machine age with its industrial and streamlined design. The absence of highly decorated surfaces becomes evident as Art Deco styles transition into streamlined modern design. Answer to question 2. What is the name of that window at the Swedish Institute in the battle? The Battle of Visby was fought on July 22nd, 1361 on the island of Gotland, a semi-independent part of Sweden, between the Goths who lived there and the Danish army. Swedish painter Carl Gustaf Hellqvist painted the scene in 1882. And by the way, Mrs. Frisbee is featured in the Newbery Award-winning children's novel, Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, written in 1971 by Robert C. O'Brien.
I highly recommend it for your reading list. Just saying.
Okay, question 3. Who is the architect of the Highland Tower? And that would be Clarence W. Wigington, who designed the Highland Water Tower, also Harriet Island Pavilion, and numerous schools and park structures in St. Paul. In addition to his designation as the nation's first African-American municipal architect, Captain Wigington played a key role in forming the first segregated division of the Minnesota Home Guard. So what type of deterioration is illustrated in the picture of the marble sculpture? Sugaring is granular crystalline disintegration of marble, resulting in a crumbly, sugary appearance. It can be caused by freeze-thaw cycles, acid rain, salts, or biological growth, such as moss or lichen. Which building stone was used in the construction of the library? It is, of course, Sioux quartzite, and that red color is characteristic of Sioux quartzite. The most significant aspect of the stone is its durability. Stronger than granite, Sioux quartzite has a reading of 7 on the Mohs scale, while granite is at only 6 to 6.5. Question 6. The design features of the Queer House style include which of the following? And that would be all of the above. The Queer House style comes from rural Luxembourg. The word Queer House means a house and a barn under one roof. Which of these breweries, all established before Minnesota became a state, was the first? That would be York Brewing Company of St. Paul, which was established in 1849, who can claim the title of oldest brewery in Minnesota. Deinhardt in Blue Earth, Vickers in Duluth, and Waldman in St. Paul all arrived in 1857. Jorg has revived their brewing tradition now at their new location and Dayton's Bluff. Question 8, what's the lowest relative humidity at which mold growth is likely to occur? Which is 65%. Although mold growth can start at around 65%, the likelihood increases as the RH increases. HVAC can prevent mold damage from high humidity through active humidity control with a dehumidifier, passive humidity control through temperature control and ventilation. Yay, now we can really score.
So just a reminder, if you want to put your total score for that first round in the chat. See how we all measure up against our colleagues. No sad face needed.
Laura, Melinda, and Megan, just so you know, some people are also sending it privately to the host, so there's a few more in there. I'll try to get them all up.
I just saw.
Oh, okay. Todd, do you have anything more than 4 in your messages?
We've got a 5, 2 5s.
Okay.
So I'll just read them off as they're coming in. Sheila is a 2, Tom Erickson is a 5, Andrea Weber is a 4, Miranda is a 5, and Renee feels embarrassed to say 3, but no, Renee, no embarrassing here.
Nope.
No, we were told yesterday by the rest of the Heritage Preservation Department that these questions were too hard. So don't feel embarrassed by your number of points.
I'll share my score later.
Yeah, Todd doesn't count. Actually, I think Todd miscounted. I think that's what really happened.
Yes, he also knows the answers. Just...
Okay, shall we move on?
Yeah, we got one more in from R. Kaufman at 4, so that's two folks that
Okay.
have 5, Miranda and Tom.
So far we've got
bonus
a
round,
tie.
and you can catch up in the second round. So don't turn your computers off. There's more.
Yes.
So now we have a very exciting intermission bonus prize. So your score for the rest of the questions doesn't matter. If you get this question the closest to the right answer, then you win a prize. And here is the question. The 2014 movie, The Monuments Men, was loosely based on the real-life story of George Stout, the American art conservator who led a U.S. Army unit focused on documenting and protecting European cultural heritage during World War II. George Stout, in this picture, he is shown overseeing the packing and removal of Michelangelo's Madonna of Bruges in the mines at Altassi, Austria in July of 1945. Also, point of fact, George Stout is from Iowa, so he's a Midwesterner. He also founded the first art conservation laboratory in the United States. And the question is, what year did this laboratory open? Please type your answer into the chat, and whoever gets the closest wins the book.
All right, so we got 5 answers in so far. I say let's give it like another half minute for people to get their answers in.
Yep.
Yes.
So I see 4 in the chat. Do you have a private one, Todd?
Yeah, and even more I've added since I opened my mouth here. Some add it to the host privately, and then some to all panelists. So it's just the option that they choose. As I read these off, I'll give it another 10 seconds or so here. Can someone write them down for me? Because the list is a little long to scroll through. So.
Yep.
Okay. Are we good for no more answers coming in? Okay. So we've got Andrea says 1947. Katie says 1953. Miranda 1925. Tom 1946. Paul 1949. Renee 1947. Pete 1937. And then last, Sheila says 1950 dash no clue exclamation point.
All right, here's the answer. 1928. So this was the Department of Technical Studies. It was established at the Fogg Museum at Harvard University in 1928. George Stout was named the museum's first conservator, but he worked closely with the chemist Rutherford John Gettins over the following decades to professionalize the field of conservation in the U.S.
All right, so if I'm reading it correctly, then Miranda had the closest with a guess of 1925.
Congratulations.
Yes. Yay.
Miranda, if you want to just type your email address into the chat, we will write that down and I will be in touch.
It's also worth you to know that this is the bonus question, not related to the overall score. Miranda is tied for the lead, so she is showing off, which we like.
Miranda's the one to beat people.
Well, and as far as the overall, like, so it's Miranda and Tom Erickson are at 5, and then Andrea and R. Kaufman each have 4. Renee has 3. Sheila has 2, and that's all who reported in the first round.
Okay, on to round 2. Another 8 questions. Okay, question 9. Laura, are you ready with your timer?
Ready to time.
Okay, question 9. Cass Gilbert and Clarence Johnston are among Minnesota's most prominent architects of the Gilded Age. Good friends since studying at MIT and practicing in New York, they are also known for their collaborations on numerous significant buildings around Minnesota. Which of these magnificent structures is an example of Gilbert and Johnston's teamwork? Glen Sheen, James J. Hill House, Pillsbury Hall at the U of M, University of Minnesota, or St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church. And 15 seconds.
And time.
Okay, question 10. Louis Sullivan initiated a new style of commercial building design during the early 20th century with the addition of applied decoration at the exterior and interior. Soon, highly decorated bank buildings, known as jewel boxes, began to appear around the Midwest. How many jewel box buildings are there in the Midwest? 8, 13, 18, or 22?
Time.
Question 11. Testing historic mortar is the first step in a masonry repointing project at a historic building. Which of these methods is most commonly used for field testing mortar? Is it optical microscopy, Rorschach test, the Rusak system, or the wet chemical method?
Time?
Question 12. Stained glass windows are an art form that can be dated as far back as the 7th century. They have a unique role in that while they are decorative and artistic, they are also structural elements that form part of the building envelope. During the modern restoration of historic stained glass windows, which metal is most commonly used as the structural support for the glass pieces? Is it pure lead, zinc, lead alloy, or steel?
Time?
Question 13. The only woman in her class, Elizabeth Liesel Shue Close, received her master's in architecture from MIT in 1935. Vienna-born Liesel Close soon made her mark on the Minnesota built environment. Which style influenced her design? Bauhaus, Brutalist, International, or Mid-Century?
Time?
Question 14. Charles Thompson Memorial Hall, built in St. Paul in 1916, was the first clubhouse for the deaf in the country and one of the few that still function as a deaf club today. Which architect designed this building? Clarence Wigington, Olaf Hansen, Cass Gilbert, or George Grant Elmsley?
Time?
Question 15. From the 1880s to 1930s, Chippewa City was home to over 100 Ojibwa families. Employed in the building, logging, and fishing industries, these families were sustained for years. Sadly, events like the 1918 flu epidemic, the Great Depression, Highway 61 expansion, and questionable land transfers led to a decline in population. Just one building still stands at the site of Chippewa City. Is it the Chickawauk Lodge, Cook County High School, Nanabuju Club, or St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church?
Time?
There we go, question 16. The 10 agents of deterioration is a framework for understanding the most common causes of material damage, developed by the Canadian Conservation Institute in the 1990s. Some examples of the 10 agents include light, ultraviolet and infrared, and incorrect relative humidity. Which of the following is not an agent of deterioration? Climate change, thieves and vandals, dissociation, or water?
Time?
Okay, get ready for the answers on the last half of the questions. Question 9. Who did Gilbert and Johnston team up, or what building did they team up on? It is St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church. Cass Gilbert designed the temporary stone church in 1895 in the half-timbered style. The nave with its prominent tower, designed by Clarence Johnston, was added in 1903. Question 10. How many jewel box buildings are there in the Midwest? Only 8. National Farmers Bank, an icon on Owatonna Main Street, was the first of Sullivan's jewel box banks. Listed in the National Register and a National Historic Landmark, the building is still operating as a bank today. Question 11. Which of these methods is most commonly used for field testing mortar? It is the Rusak system. The system is developed by third-generation mason Tom Rusak. It uses only a chisel, hammer, and low-power magnifying glass to determine the defining characteristics of historic mortars. Question 12. Stained glass windows are supported by lead alloy. In the 1970s, researchers developed a lead alloy called restoration lead, based on the lead used in medieval stained glass windows, which lasted hundreds of years. Restoration lead is alloyed with elements such as antimony and tin to increase strength and durability. Question 13. Liesl Close's leaning toward European international style was likely inspired by her family home designed by progressive Viennese architect Adolf Loos. Soon after arriving in Minnesota, she designed the Faulkner House, the first international style home in Minneapolis. Question 14, which architect designed Charles Thompson Memorial Hall? It was Olaf Hansen. Olaf Hansen was born in Sweden, but raised near Wilmer. He was presumably the first deaf American architect. He attended the Minnesota State Academy for the Deaf in Faribault and Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. And then he came back and worked as an architect in Duluth and Minneapolis. Question 15. One building still standing at the site of Chippewa City is St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church. Built in 1895 by Ojibwa carpenter Frank Wishkop, St. Francis Xavier was at the center of community activities in Chippewa City. Due to the continued decline in population, the last Mass was held in 1936. The church has been restored and maintained to tell the story of life in Chippewa City. And question 16, which of the following is not an agent of deterioration? That would be climate change. The 10 agents of deterioration are physical forces, thieves and vandals, fire, water, pests, pollutants, light, incorrect temperatures, incorrect relative humidity, and dissociation. And dissociation refers to loss of information, which could be misplacing an object or losing its identified information. Climate change results in increased frequency of damage caused by nearly all of the agents. Okay, time to tally up your numbers for round 2. And then add them to your score from the first round. Total possible points again is 16. And you can put your totals in the chat. Oh no, Renee. Renee said, sad to report only 5. I second guessed myself on a couple. Always go with your first answer. Todd, let us know if anybody reports just to you.
Looks like so far it's to all panelists that they're reporting, so I don't think I've seen anything.
Sheila reports that she's had good educational experience, so yay. That's what we're going for.
Oh,
Couple more seconds for everybody to get their numbers in. Okay, are we ready to move on?
Just so you know, there weren't any just to the host, so you guys can see everything. It was all to.
So we have it
the
all.
panelists.
Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reporting. Looks like our big winner is Andrea Weber with 10 points.
wow.
Well done.
Yes. And she's the only one with 10 points?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, we got Andrea with 10, Tom Erickson with 7, Miranda with 8, Renee with 5, and Sheila with her educational experience. And we did have a tiebreaker question in case we needed it, which we don't, but which should we put it up anyway, just for fun?
Just for fun. Sure.
Megan, you want to put another book up?
Oh yeah, Andrea, I think we'll need your, Megan's gonna need your email, correct, Megan? Okay, let's do the tiebreaker question just for fun. The Minnesota Historical and Cultural Heritage Grants Program started awarding grants in 2009 after the Clean Water, Land, and Legacy Amendment was passed by voters in November 2008. The grants program provides funding for a wide variety of history and historic preservation projects around the state of Minnesota. And since this is the Preservation Conference, we decided to ask approximately how much funding has been granted to historic preservation projects to date. And anybody who wants to venture a guess can put their numbers in the chat. Again, just for fun. Tom's going to guess 28 million. 80 million from Andrea. 32 million from Miranda. Got some good numbers here. 20 million from Renee. Okay. Should we put up the answer? Okay, historic preservation projects to date have been given approximately 31.8 million. So a couple of you came in pretty close. And that pretty much ends the trivia portion of our session. We have a little bit of time, looks like, for Q&A. Yes, thank you. Have our slide for our thank you. Thank you for attending today and playing along.
Yes, thanks a lot. And if you do have any questions for us about any of these historical facts? Possibly not so well known.
Ask Laura.
Do you want me to unmute the attendees' microphones or
Oh,
Yeah.
Q&A or okay? Warning to
Let's-
everybody, I'm going to be unmuting microphones, so hopefully there's no cats meowing or dogs
it's
barking
easier
or
than chat.
so. And you can certainly unmute yourself. You can mute yourself back up as soon as you can. So I'm going to start now. All right, that's everybody. So again, go ahead and mute yourself if that's your preference.
Okay. Anybody have questions or comments on any of the trivia questions?
Yes, I have a comment. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
Okay, you showed a picture of the Interstate Clinic in Red Wing, and I just barely remember that building in the early 70s when I came here. On that same block was the building that we always called the Irish row houses, and both of those demolitions kind of got things started in our town, and really, and I think the lawsuits kind of became a statewide issue, and unfortunately, those were the sacrificial lambs that pushed us to a lot of the way where we are today.
Ooh, that's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. That's sad.
Well, it'd be interesting to see a session sometime on somebody doing the buildings that were lost that started preservation movements. It always sort of seems like it takes a great loss to get people active. I know in Minneapolis, the Gateway District was a great impetus for preservation. I spent a lot of time in Anoka. The Anoka Carnegie Library coming down had a big impact on preservation there.
I'm lucky enough to now live in a 1916 building, which was the original high school, which was preserved in the 1990s because of that earlier loss, I think.
Very sad.
Thanks, Sam. That was really interesting. Anyone else have questions or comments?
Right. Anyone else know of some of these buildings? Have a story about it?
Anyone want to share which question was their favorite or their least favorite?
Well, I could share something embarrassing. This is Andrea Weber here. I work on historic stone masonry projects, and I did get the masonry question wrong. So the mortar question.
Oh.
Well, I know yesterday when I helped out on the practice session, the architectural style of for the one that's up, I was so confident it was Bauhaus because I just didn't think international. It shows I'm not an architectural historian, but it's like I don't think international comes along until the 1940s anyway. But so it shows how much I know.
Well, it actually started in the 1920s.
Well, not in my mind, Laura.
Right. Okay.
My opinion is outweighs any factual information that comes at me.
Yeah. But actually,
bat away the factual information.
yeah, the term international style wasn't even used until 1932. So it probably peaked in the late 30s. maybe around 1940.
Is that the year that Mies van der Rohe came to Illinois Institute of Technology?
I don't know.
Because that is the birth of the international style, at least
In the
Chicago,
country.
isn't it?
Yes, yes, in the country, definitely. So I think some of his buildings happened prior to this one, but yes, Minnesota may have been a little behind. Oh,
Renee had a
his question.
good comment about the first question, which I know we discussed yesterday during our run through as well. The theater. She said it seems like it could be either Art Deco or modern. I kind of agree. It does have a little bit of an Art Deco look.
But I think Laura had a good explanation, sort of a transitional nature to it.
Right.
Laura,
right.
let's hear your explanation again.
Defend yourself, Laura.
Okay, I will. I will do that. Yes, this general shape of the building, of course, looks like Art Deco. However, there's no Art Deco decoration on the building. So the streamlined modern style grew out of Art Deco, and it was just basically stripping the building of all the deco. So that's why it's called, and as streamlined modern evolved, the buildings became really super sleek and more curved than square and more horizontal focus rather than vertical.
So I'm blanking on the name of the building. It's in, I don't know if it's on the St. Paul side or if we're into Falcon Heights. I think it's, well, it's north of the State Fairgrounds, but on Snelling and Larpenteur, the building that's at the northwest, or excuse me, southwest corner, that I've always said, oh, great example of deco. And now, as you explained this to me, I'd say, no, Todd,
Is
it
it?
seems like streamlined modern because it's very, there's not a lot of embellishments there.
Okay, I thought there was some decoration on that building, but
I could be misremembering.
I could be wrong too. But you're right. That would be a good example of something more local. I'm going to have to check that out now.
And I don't know if you can see in Renee's to the chat there. She agrees with your, so she posed the question and she agrees with your explanation. So you've won over the audience, Laura.
Yay. Thank you, Renee. See.
Sounds like we're going to need another field trip of sorts. Another architecture field trip.
That's the hard part about not doing the preservation conference in person. I mean, like, it's great to see people, but I always look forward to the tours. So, so it was technically in Stillwater this year, right? So.
Correct.
Bad.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to point out that those theaters like that Ely State Theater, built in the 20s and 30s, and mostly often included theater pipe organs too.
Oh.
Of course, they have their own story of their demise.
I don't know if does that one still have its organ? I know there's been great restoration work on it in the last, I don't know, 10 years or so.
You know, if it's 1936, it probably doesn't, because remember, talking films were but 1929, 1930, so they didn't need theater organs beginning in the 30s.
It's not a Deco or Modern, but the Heights Theater in Columbia Heights has an organ, but I honestly, now I'm just failing to remember if that's the original organ or if that was.
No, it's not. We in Red Wing at the Sheldon Theater have the original 1926 theater organ.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sheldon is a beautiful building. Down to every detail. Do we have any more questions or comments?
Well, it looks like that's it for the questions. Thanks everybody for joining. As announced earlier, the session's been recorded and will be available to registrants. Not sure how soon that happens, but I would assume you'll be notified of when the recordings for all of the sessions are made available. So thanks to the panelists for a great trivia session, and thanks for everybody who participated. I think this was a lot of fun for all of us.
Yes, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, everyone.